You ever feel like your job title, it's just one tiny piece of who you really are? Well, if that sounds familiar, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're going to dive into this really cool philosophy called slash youth. It's a whole new way of looking at your career, your passions, and honestly, it could totally change how you see your future.
All right, let's kick things off with a question that I think really hits home for a lot of us. When someone asks you, so what do you do? Does your job title even begin to cover it? Or do you kind of cringe inside thinking, man, there is so much more to me than just that one label? That feeling, that's exactly what we're digging into today.
Okay, so before we jump into the solution, we've got to understand the problem first, right? Let's talk about why this whole idea of a single, lifelong career is, well, kind of fading away, and how the rules of the game have totally changed. You know, a lot of us grew up hearing the same story, right? Get a good job, stick with one company, climb that ladder, and then retire happy. But let's be real. For so many of us now, that path to stability feels, I don't know, not just out of reach, but kind of unfulfilling too.
So what we've done is basically trade that old promise of security and loyalty for a whole new reality. A reality where what we really value is flexibility, autonomy, and having this whole portfolio of different skills. It's way less like climbing a straight ladder and honestly, a lot more like navigating a jungle gym. You get to forge your own path, which is pretty cool. So if the old model is broken, what's the alternative? Well, let's meet the slash youth. This is a brand new model for living a life that actually embraces all of your passions. The idea here is actually pretty simple, but it's so powerful. The term slash youth came about to describe people who just flat out refuse to be defined by one job. So instead of just saying, I'm a designer, they introduce themselves with, well, with slashes. I'm a designer slash musician slash entrepreneur. It's basically a declaration that, hey, I'm more than just one thing. And here's what that actually looks like in the real world. This isn't about being scattered or all over the place. No, it's about intentionally weaving your different talents together. So picture this, an engineer who's also an amazing musician, or a marketer who teaches yoga on the weekends. And the key thing here is these aren't just little hobbies on the side. They are core parts of who they are, and a lot of times a core part of how they make a living, too. Okay, so maybe you're feeling inspired right now. You're thinking, I want to add some slashes to my life. But where do you even start? Well, the real work, it actually begins inside your own head. The biggest obstacles aren't about logistics, they're mental. So let's talk about how to rewire your brain for this whole new way of thinking. Okay, mental block number one. It's that classic fear, right? The jack of all trades, master of none thing. We've all heard it. But this philosophy, it reframes that so beautifully. Being into a bunch of different things isn't about being mediocre at all of them. It's about building a completely unique and resilient version of yourself. Seriously, think about it. Nobody else on the planet has your exact combination of skills and passions. All right, next up is this cultural obsession we have with never giving up. It's drilled into our heads from day one that quitting is failure. But in a slash life, sometimes the absolute smartest thing you can do is pivot, to move away from something that just isn't working anymore. That's not giving up, that's a strategic pivot towards something that fits you way, way better. And finally, let's tackle the big one, guilt. You know that feeling, that little voice that says, focusing on your own passions is selfish? Yeah, that thinking is completely outdated. Taking care of yourself, your energy, your interests, that's not a vice. It is the absolute foundation you need to build a life that's sustainable and truly has an impact. All right, so we've got the mindset sorted. Now, how do you actually start building this life? Let's get practical and open up the growth toolkit. Here's the roadmap, basically. First, you've got to discover your talents. And that means a deep dive not just into what you're good at, but what you genuinely love doing. Next, you have to invest in yourself. Put in the time, the resources, whatever it takes to really sharpen those skills. But just learning isn't enough. You need what's called deliberate practice. That means you're pushing your limits. You're not just mindlessly repeating things. And last but not least, and this one is a total game changer, you can't do this alone. You have to build your tribe. Find that community that gets it, that supports you and inspires you. Now check this out. Here's an idea that makes this whole slash life thing feel so much more possible. You don't need to be a superstar with millions of followers. There's this theory called 1,000 true fans, and it basically says you only need about 1,000 people, just 1,000, who truly, genuinely love what you create to make a living from it. All of a sudden, building a life around that thing you're passionate about feels incredibly achievable, doesn't it? So, okay,
we've got the mindset, we've got the tools, but what's the point of all this? What's the end game? Look, the ultimate reward isn't just having a cool long business card. It's about designing a life that you live on purpose, a life that feels deliberate and present. And let's be super clear about something. This is not about hustling yourself into the ground with 3 different jobs. The real goal is to create a life where your actions on the outside are in perfect harmony with your values on the inside. It's about feeling like the person you are and the things you do are finally in sync. And these are the pillars that hold that kind of life up. It's about things like minimalism, focusing only on what really matters. It's about mindfulness, using tools like meditation to actually be present in your own life. It's about finding real joy in the everyday simple moments. And it totally redefines financial freedom. It's not about having more, it's about having enough. Enough to live the exact life you've designed for yourself.
So when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway here? It's that this isn't some strict set of rules you have to follow. Think of it more like an invitation to see your life not as some fixed, predetermined path, but as an open draft. A draft that you get to write, you get to edit, and you get to revise as you go. So the only real question left is, what are you going to write next? What's the next slash you're going to add to your story?